Hello and welcome to a Star Citizen monthly report for the development of the persistent universe, looking at what CIG have been working on over the last few weeks and what they're focused on now in May 2024. From 3.23 features, although we'll try and omit a lot of this because we've been talking about it a lot recently, but we're going to be also talking about stuff they're working on beyond that with Alpha 4.0 and even a 1.0 sort of commercial viable release. There's a load of juicy updates here, and we're going to start with some ship and vehicle updates. The RSI Zeus is continuing with its beauty and polish stage. The cockpit is now grey box complete, which is established the standard for the remainder of the ship. The habitation area is receiving the last elements of polish, including resolving the ceiling and personal storage areas. The cargo room ceiling had a pass and the devs began finalising the walls. The mess hall is nearing completion, as is the central hallway. Work on the exterior progressed well too, which has now had a significantly increased level of detail throughout. They are currently going through all the other sections to ensure they have the same level of detail. They also started looking at lighting, including a pass of every room and the entire exterior. Following this, it will be outfitted with proper fixtures. I think we're going to see the ship in Alpha 4.0, or the next major patch after 3.23. The Anvil Legionnaire is now white box complete, so they're working on some stuff to improve its usability when boarding hostile vessels. The devs are currently exploring options for collapsible cover built into the boarding tunnel. I suspect the Legionnaire will turn up by the end of the year. The resource network also saw work finished for 10 ships, while legacy updates were also made to an additional 3 ships to support a new selection of paints. The branding and vehicles team worked closely to create brand identities for upcoming and existing vehicles within the game. VFX worked on a variety of vehicles that are going to be in a upcoming release. Assumedly, this is them talking about Fleet Week ships, and for Fleet Week, I'm assuming 3 ships and vehicles, probably something like that, and some additional variants too. It's likely going to be a mixture of straight to flyable stuff and concepts and variants, though any concepts will likely be completed in a relatively quick time. Tech design iterated on weapon balance and AI following director feedback for the latter, and easier AI behavior was created for use in very easy and introductory missions. A call to action prompt was added to the elevator panels of multiple ships. The core gameplay pillar team worked on closing out features and preparing them for Alpha 3.23. A significant amount of time was invested into polishing and bug fixing, as well as reviewing feedback from the community to improve features where possible. Various improvements were made to weapons, including enabling the interrupting and cancelling of backpack reloading and ammo repooling via actions like weapon swap, sprint and melee. Support was added for hit marker sounds, while recoil patterns are now the same for tap firing and holding the fire button. For jump points, the team enabled new fail states if a jump drive detaches or stops functioning, and added a push force to help keep players sort of on course while quantuming. They also implemented the first pass of procedurally generated tunnels, from design parameters including randomness to tunnel shapes for variety. Work continued on the resource network, the engineering experimental mode in Arena Commander, including enabling doors without power to be openable but not closable to prevent players from being trapped. They implemented a throttle that manages power in one SCU segment based on the updated UI design. I would like to see there to be an emergency power function, so it takes some of your ship's power, or maybe a lot of your ship's power, to emergency power doors. So you can go, well, actually, if you lose power in a section or whatever, you've lost the ability to open and close doors, but you can use some of your power, emergency power, as like a subsystem that's throughout the ship. Bam, you've got access to open and close them. I just like that as an idea. Anyway, changes were made to Pirate Swarm's final wave, which now uses 2 Idris capital ships rather than the Javelin or the Bengal. There's problems with the Javelin at the moment. Gun Rush now supports multiple weapon lists controlled by badges that can be randomized from all enabled weapons. VoIP and Unmute were added back into Arena Commander as well. Additional item power range modifiers were added, which enable extra behaviors currently used for heat generation. This entered optimization for eventual release. For the life support and room systems, the team implemented filters that degrade over time, with the life support generator ceasing to work once all are used. So little scrubbers that you need to replace as part of the engineering and general maintenance of your ship. Gas propagation now uses accurate positioning within rooms, while atmospheres will equalize differently depending on whether they're high or low atmosphere environments. Technical requirements for crafting were scoped out with design, and room system documentation was updated to enable other teams to better implement their work. I'm really looking forward to crafting and fabrication in Star Citizen. Work continued on Maelstrom, which is the ship and sort of structure destruction system, and the radar and scanning features. Planning continued for a transit refactor. Further development was done on the Contracts Manager app, with the team providing code support for hauling missions, and all missions were added back in, where players can choose between different objectives to go do that or this. Reputation-based hostility saw work alongside several issues and improvements. A neutral zone was added. This special restricted area is basically an area that all players have permission to be in, with NPCs ignoring reputation and relationships and criminality and reacting neutrally to everyone. However, access is revoked for any non-justified hostile action in that area, with everyone else then going, "This person is hostile," and attacking accordingly. To regain access after hostile actions, the offending player will need to exit the zone and wait a set amount of time and then enter again. If you enter too early or you don't leave, then the timer is completely reset for that, so you'll need to leave and stay out. Mission design continued to polish content for Alpha 3.23, including Xenothreat and fauna-related missions. They also made quality of life improvements to missions, including missing persons, and supported content for distribution centers. There was a lot of progress with freight elevators, item banks, and persistent hangars that were pushed to the 3.23.x patch in the near future. Mission design used the extra time until the cargo updates are implemented to add additional high-quality content and further polish the cargo hauling and kill and collect missions. They said the various shipping companies of Stanton often outsource cargo hauling to freelancers through contracts. These job board missions task the player with picking up the designated cargo shipment at one or more locations and offloading it at one or more destinations. At their core, these missions will test the player's knowledge of their ship specs and their ability to weigh the time spent loading and travelling against the payout. They will see the player transport goods back and forth to various jump points, low orbit stations, Lagrange points, landing zones, and distribution centers. These goods consist of various commodities and vehicles of real value, allowing players to get a rudimentary sense of what it will be like to have a hauling career. Simultaneously, this represents our first steps towards implementing the logistical structure of the verse in a tangible, playable form prior to the quanta-controlled system. So that's the dynamic simulation they're talking about there, the quanta-controlled stuff, and the dynamic economy, and that is something I am so looking forward to. The Interactables team completed their work on fire extinguisher recharge cabinets, including both high-tech and low-tech versions. These will be placed in hangars for convenience and aid in ship fire gameplay, or putting out ship fires and that sort of stuff. Industrial cargo containers had their final art pass, including branding and signage, giving them more credibility as container storage. Lighting spent time polishing distribution centers before moving on to instanced hangars and freight elevators, with the aim of making every interaction an engaging event. The locations team spent some time closing out features for Alpha 3.03. For example, the sandbox team completed distribution centers, adding the last elements of polish before shipping. The team are looking forward to players getting their hands on these locations, and will be looking for feedback that they can then take forward as distribution centers evolve into the future, because they're adding a huge amount more content to those hubs of activity. The sandbox team are currently finalizing the last few outposts going into Pyro for Alpha 4.0, while supporting other location teams with their tasks for upcoming patch releases. The landing zone team finalized art for the cargo initiative and helped out other teams on 3.23. AI features! They put significant effort into 3.23's release, specifically with the new creatures, the Copians, for example. So they're going to be found across the surfaces of planets and moons and in caves. They said, "We're really excited to share this new creature and gameplay possibilities it provides. Copians are the first of some new creatures that we've been working on and have posed many challenges during their development. We also had the pleasure of bringing all the hard work of other teams into a cohesive whole." New features were added for creatures, including ground alignment tech, which allows them to appear correctly situated when moving across the terrain, and the ability to attack in formation. The attacks themselves require motion wrapping and melee attack technology to connect with the player. The team also put a lot of effort into ensuring that these functionalities work well across different environments. AI tech focused on planetary navigation mesh, with the version implemented recently receiving significant improvements. They removed the generation limits over the planet's latitude, which gives stronger coupling with planet terrain patches, allowing the nav mesh correctly generated over the planet efficiently. They then improved the generation response at lower frame rates so that movement over planets in non-ideal performance scenarios results in acceptable nav mesh generation times. They made a load of optimizations to this stuff so it generates faster, and there's appropriate failure detection. They don't want NPCs leaving the mesh area, and if they do, they want to have a way of getting them back on track. Another key feature worked on was the Boyd system. So this is for the new Marok creature. They are a relatively large bird, but Boyds are birdoid objects, but there are also swarms and fish and things like that. So the devs are improving network synchronization and extending the system to support audio triggers from different agent states. Several optimizations were made to the overall code. Progress was also made on the spaceship combat behavior, which is planned for release in Alpha 3.23. All NPC fighters now use this behavior, which involves them using limited ballistic ammo rather than infinite rounds as before. AI Tech also implemented point defense cannons that will protect capital ships from incoming missiles. Animation work continued on various creatures, including 2 predators and a prey animal. They also spent time polishing player movement in space and when prone, which will be live in 3.23, and implemented hit reactions for when AI are out in the open. The facial animation team continued to develop face animations for various in-game elements. The tech animation team continued to generate and implement new head assets to the DNA gene pool. Devs are currently dealing with complications of players and NPCs putting on and taking off clothes live in the engine. They said this has been ongoing for some time, and with the addition of animation resources into the mix, we are seeing great headway in both generating the assets for animation and generating usable pipelines to expedite the entire process for everyone involved. Additionally, the teams are intrinsic in the creation and implementation of new creatures for both the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42. They're also involved in work towards consumables and the setup of foodstuffs, with the team aiming to guide the initiative and promote time-saving workflows. The character art team began work on 2 specialist armors, reworked a utility armor, and supported requests for the character customizer. They also continued working on creatures. The concept art team for characters continued developing specialist armors. The hair team kicked off new hairstyles for 4.0 and undertook some R&D on fur. I wonder if that's going to be for some form of microtech Yeti or boreal stalker. Looking ahead with narrative, the team helped with upcoming Invictus launch week preparations, making sure everything is ready for players to visit in-game. This was a particular focus of the narrative design team who looked at NPCs attending the event. The team also spent time working on cargo gameplay, providing UI and mission support. Additionally, the narrative team did a lot of planning and pre-production for Star Citizen 1.0, detailing the scripts and assets that will be needed for its release. This includes looking at legacy work done in the game's early releases and analysing how best to update to meet the current new standards. Some networking, graphics and engine updates. More preparation was made for server meshing. They're also getting ready for Easy Anti-Cheat to be actively enforcing sanctions. There are loads of network optimizations. There's significant improvements being made to clouds and fog. Also, they have the addition of very high-end photo modes for clouds, basically. There was a load of shader optimization work. There's Vulkan improvements, graphics improvements. Vulkan, still very much in its early stages of implementation and requires ironing out, but obviously if you want to use it now, you're collecting data and helping with the sort of bug fixing process. Boom! That's it for your monthly report for the Persistent Universe this time in May. NordVPN stuff. You should try out NordVPN. We've got links below. It allows you to have a more secure internet, helping you with privacy, but also accessibility of other content around the globe. I don't want anyone to know what I'm looking at online, especially not my ISP. Check out nordvpn.com/BoredGamer or the links below to that. It helps the channel as well. We also have a ship giveaway for this month of May. We are giving away a Crusader Spirit C1 absolutely fantastic multi-role ship, although it is a bit more focused on cargo, but it's got a good amount of pew-pew. It's got enough room for you and a teammate to fly around and pew-pew stuff, do mission running, do cargo running. You can have a vehicle in the back. All you need to do to be in for a chance of winning that is comment on any of my videos made during the month, and then a random comment, boo, is chosen. It also comes with a game package and lifetime insurance, so everything you need to play Star Citizen. I really would like to know, what are your thoughts on Alpha 3.23? Have you been playing it? Are you looking forward to it going live, which I suspect will be going live within a day or so? Are you looking forward to the next major release with 4.0? Or are you going, actually, I'm just looking forward to Fleet Week, or when they add the new cargo updates with the hangars being persistent and cargo hauling missions and the freight elevators and all that sort of jazz, which is coming at some point in the 3.23 cycle. When do you think this magical Star Citizen 1.0 release will be? Is it going to be in 2026? Is it much further out? Whatever your thoughts or questions, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. And if you would like to further support the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe, things like that. Comment on the video, share the video, but also you can click on the join button on the videos, which helps support the channel no end. Well, some end. It helps support the channel a lot of ends. There's also Patreon and all that sort of jazz as well, which helps a ton too. Thank you so much for watching.